Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for joining us on today's webinar, Why County-Based Document Management Makes Sense. My name is Taylor Grosso, and I'm a district manager here at Laserfiche. It's my privilege to be joined today by Dustin Eubanks, who's a senior client executive over at Northwoods. We're excited to share how you can streamline case management and document management at the county level with an interactive presentation today. But before we dive into today's material, a few housekeeping items I'd like to cover. First, I've taken the liberty of muting all attendees on today's webinar. We do this to minimize any distracting background noise. If you need to reach us and have a logistical question related to WebEx, please use the chat pane on the right-hand side of your screen, and someone from our team will assist you. We're going to be taking questions at the end of today's webinar, but if a question arises during the webinar, please use the Q&A box at the top of the right-hand pane. The Q&A box allows others attending the webinar to see your questions and the responses that we respond. So we will also be recording today's webinar, so don't worry about jotting everything down for your colleagues. We're also going to be sending the webinar recording out to everyone that registered today. So we're so glad you have joined us for this webinar. Both Laserfiche and Northwoods work with hundreds of counties across the nation. We wanted to share with you a trend that we've been observing: county-based document management. In many states, including the state of Pennsylvania, counties have access to a statewide document management system for county human services agencies. I'm sure that many of you are familiar with and actively using this system. However, in today's environment, the statewide system sometimes falls short. Oftentimes, the statewide systems often are focused on compliance, which doesn't mesh with the service-driven environment we're working in today. While compliance is critical, not optimized, compliance-centric systems can limit an agency's ability to provide excellent service and process cases quickly. The need to efficiently process cases becomes even more important when you factor in ever-changing legislation, which has led to an increase in caseloads for many counties. This high demand for services creates mass amounts of paperwork, and case files are being stored in multiple places. It can be tedious to locate all documents associated with cases across because it involves checking multiple systems and searching for paper documents. Given the high volume of cases agencies are seeing, the time to locate all the information quickly adds up. Today's citizen also expects a more digital experience from government organizations. As consumers become more tech-savvy, the best way to provide service to the majority of citizens is often via the web. According to the latest census report, about 75% of households in the U.S. have internet access, and this number is growing. Citizens are asking for an easier way to apply for services, and the state-based system can rarely offer this option. So the goal of today's webinar is to help you understand when it makes sense to have a county-based document management system in addition to the one provided by the state, and why you might consider a county-based solution. Specifically, we'll walk through the 5 key areas other counties are benefiting from a county-based system, including unsiloed data, the support of additional evidence and verification collection outside of state requirement, improved resources to support local community providers and their involvement, comprehensive electronic signatures and forms collection, and then the ability to focus on client interaction rather than just compliance. So at this time, I'd like to hand things off to Dustin Eubanks, again, Senior Client Executive at Northwoods. Dustin manages business development in the East region and has 8 years of experience working with human services agencies. During his career, he's partnered with over 175 different human services agencies, including 40 of those agencies in Pennsylvania. To provide successful paperless systems, Dustin will walk us through the when it makes sense to implement a county-based system and how your county can realize the benefits. Dustin?
Thanks, Taylor. Well, here at Northwoods, if you're not familiar with what we do, we work with Laserfiche in order to provide those human services county-based specific systems. We already work with about 150 counties We work with about 12 states and a U.S. territory. And really what we want to do is we want to provide that gap fill against what the state is or isn't providing. Really, you know, through our experience, a lot of our staff have come from human services all the way from frontline staff to being directors. And what that has done is shown us over time exactly where that county-based fit needs to go in. I think the state-based systems make a lot of sense, and they're typically good at what they do, but they do have a different intent in mind. So that's really what we're going to talk about, is what would be the intent of a county system and how would it help you with your staff. So really the bottom line is when the state is providing you a system, it's great, it does what it needs to do, but you still have to do what you need to do for your customer. You need to serve them in an efficient and effective manner. You need to get them what they need quickly, whether that's communicating with local community service providers, it could be law enforcement, it could be a food bank. You'll see several Pennsylvania examples throughout the presentation today. It's because we have an event coming up in York, Pennsylvania in August of this year, and we'll talk about that a little bit later. But the same principles apply in other states across the U.S. You know, at the same time, we have to get access to everyone. We need to make sure that everybody in the agency is well informed on this client. Anybody can help anybody who walks in the door. If I'm a staff member at the front desk, or if I'm a staff member going out in the home, I need to know what everybody else knows about that client, not only for my protection and security, but also to inform and make sure that I can make great decisions about that client in a timely, effective manner. We also have to meet the program requirements. We have the compliance, we have the oversight, we have a term that I hear all the time against state systems, which is key. And that takes time. That's time away from your clients. That's time that you typically don't have as you're already running thin as a human services agency. So where do you get that time back? Where do you get the time to do the work? Where do you get the efficiencies you need to actually interact with the families, get them the services they need, do a child support application, place a child in a foster home, get a child enrolled in school, process a food and nutrition, Medicaid application, because the real grunt of that is collecting the signatures, the documents, and the information in order to make a decision. Once you make a decision, or you need to get a decision process for that client, now you're keying into the state system. So the bottom line is that we want to help with that balance. We want to help you get that time back so that you can stay on top of what you need to for your clients. So we know right now, if we look at the state of Pennsylvania as well as some of the other 12 states that we work in, you can look very quickly and see this is the vision of a state system. The vision, the idea is that one size fits all. This is a state system that needs to meet CFSR requirements, child support requirements, maybe we've got the FDA requirements that need to be met, or Medicaid, or you know, we've got new healthcare reform acts coming down. So there's all kinds of challenges that need to be met. Typically, that is the goal of a state system, to get that information and collect that information. But not all counties act the same. So if we look at Pennsylvania, there's 67, there's 100 in North Carolina, 88 in Ohio. So what we find is that the small counties operate with staff wearing multiple hats, and the large counties operate with more specialization just due to the fact that they can because of the population. But the state system is usually somewhere in the middle. It has to be a jack of all trades. It has to be a one size fits all, and different counties have different influence over what that state looks like. So a lot of the times you end up with a system and you look at it and you say, well, this isn't exactly what I need. It helps, it does the job, but it doesn't exactly meet me on my terms to make my job and make my efficiency with the client, you know, and to get that to be a quick and fast interactive situation for you. So what we want to do is we want to look at it on a county-by-county situation. So whether that means that in a particular county you provide guardianship and protective services for adults, or in another county you might have a very streamlined process. You know, we see a lot of people that are trying to case bank and work information universally, but then we see different variances of that. You also might want to pilot a red team situation for children and youth services. You might want to pilot some new multiple response, or you want to do a new working for interstate requirements. Maybe you're in Pennsylvania and Ohio has a different set of requirements, and the state system isn't allowing me to work that appropriately. And really, you know, that's, again, as a state system, we're trying to catch as much as we can. It's like a self-help book. It's a catch-all. But it does miss certain gaps, and it does miss the things that you need to specifically meet your processes within your county based upon your situation. And a lot of times there's local services too. So there could be local grant dollars or fund dollars that need to be taken place, and you're using some of the same verifications, evidence, and information in order to provide them, but you're doing it outside of the state system. So when we look at certain states, you might have several siloed systems. So we might have a system for state food nutrition or county food nutrition services. We might have a system for daycare, another system for child support, another one that would be in place for foster care or CPS, adult protective services. So we end up creating these different silos. And sometimes we even bolt on a document management systems that's specific to each one of those areas as well. So you end up with this multiplication table of systems. And the challenge with that is that each of these systems are operating off of similar information. If we were to use a simple example of a custody agreement, that custody agreement could be used in Medicaid, food and nutrition. It could be used in child welfare, in child support. It's just used for different reasons. But yet we're not sharing that across multiple ways. We're not taking that one piece of evidence that we've collected in paper form and then distributing it effectively so that each program can use that in a way that makes sense for them. So we're siloing information. We're making it at the state level. We're making it harder for you to go and find the information and what you need. Now, a lot of times I understand why that happens because confidentiality decisions can be made at the county level. And yet again, that's why a county system makes sense, because you can say, well, I do want to share this information with my child support agent. I do want to share it with child welfare because they call me to get that same information. So we want to unsilo that, and typically that is a county-based decision. So here is a caseworker in a county that we work with. Her name is Tammy. She works in Burke County, North Carolina. They have a state case management system. They had it in place when this picture was taken. We went in and we said, well, what's all this paper? What is it? And what we find happens is, yes, you provide me a system for food nutrition and for verifications and for income and for housing and all these different areas. You provide me all this different stuff, but I have to go look at each one of those separately. Now I have to take the aggregate of that and then make a decision against it. So what ends up happening is, if I don't have a way to do that electronically to kind of unsilo that data, now I'm going to print it off, and then I'm going to build my case file in a way that makes sense for me, the way that I do my job. And you would do your job differently if you're getting ready for court, to establish a new case, to get a child into foster care, to transfer a case. Every type of job function you need requires a different case breakdown. And the easiest way to do that, if you don't have a county system that for document management and managing these verifications and evidence, is to print it off. Print it off, sit it on your desk. Now I can see the data in a way that makes sense to me, and it's more efficient that way. But what you're doing is creating another silo. Now you've got a paper silo. So now I have to go to Tammy to ask her what she's printed and what she's looked at and what she's found. Or I might have mail coming in the front door of the agency, and it never makes it to the system because I know Tammy wants to work off of it paper-wise. Or a client brings it in, and it goes into the system after the fact, at the end of the case. And this is now creating another level of complexity. It's now creating another silo, and the place where you actually do your work is on paper and it's on your desk. So this is another county worker, and her name is Amy Alligood. She's in Beaufort County, and she's now been using the system for a couple of years. And as you can see, her desk is nice and clean. You'll notice that she's got multiple monitors, because now she's got on one monitor, she's got the ability to pull up that verification, sort it, look at it electronically, share it with everybody in the agency, and then work in a state system on the other one and put in and key that information in once you've got everything aggregated and organized. And actually in some states we're working to integrate directly with the state so that even some of that becomes more automated. But the bottom line is, is that now she can work that verification, that evidence on the computer rather than having to do it on her desk. So the work before it gets to that state case management or document management system, you now have a working tray and you have a working system to go through that. So what does this mean? What does this mean for a county so that you have the opportunity to do this now? So it's great, we're off paper, and I think that's kind of the obvious thing. But what it means is that you now have a complete picture of a client and their relationships. So when you have siloed systems and you have case-centric systems, you know, what we find is that even within an agency, let's say that you're using a state system for child welfare, and I've got a dad in 6 cases, and he might have an arrest record once. I now have to apply that arrest record to 6 cases. Well, the way that we would operate and the way that we would solve this challenge with Laserfiche is that we would take it, and now we would take those documents, and we would apply them to the person. And now a person is a part of a case. So now all that evidence follows that person, and if it hits that person one time, it now gets distributed to every worker that would care about it and need to see it, with confidentiality, of course. So not only am I providing something to a dad that's in 3 different child welfare cases, but I'm also providing something that to child support, maybe a change of address that might be helpful to child welfare. The same thing's true with food nutrition. I'm always going to give you a great address for Medicaid or food nutrition so that I can receive my benefits, but I'm not always going to give my social worker my up-to-date information because that's not always an asked or requested interaction like food nutrition is. So nobody signs up for child welfare services voluntarily, but they do for food nutrition. So food nutrition has the better set of data. Let's have it follow that person. A lot of the times, if you're working in a county, there's about an 80% chance that that client has already interacted somewhere within some of the other services that you might be connected to. So rather than calling that agent on the other side of the department or another program area, you could say, hey, I'm adding this client, and all that evidence will start building that case for you automatically. This person's in, this is the type of job I'm facilitating, quick search in the database, here's all the documents, and you have them there and available. So it's really going to help prevent fraud as well. So if I am now as a worker, I see that I'm interacting with a client, I'm asking you for that custody agreement for the 3rd time, the client may look at you and say, oh, well, you're not talking to this program, or you're not talking to child support, and you're not talking to child welfare. You're asking me for the same information. I now have a red buzzer going off in my head that says, oh, I have the opportunity to tell you a different story. I have the opportunity to tell you that I have a different case makeup. And that's a challenge. When we are telling a client to tell us the story again, not only is it a bad use of taxpayer dollars, and not only are we asking and storing the same information a 2nd, 3rd, or 4th time, but we're telling the client, we're not communicating. So you can tell me whatever you want, and I won't be able to verify it. At the same time, we have workers that spend a lot of time trying to find information. I go to counties that have systems that are provided by the state, again, good systems that do what they need to do to collect the data and, do your CFSR reporting and 4E or whatever it may be. But that doesn't mean that when a worker is asked to go work with a client up at the front desk, that they can quickly find all that evidence and get it to understand what needs to be done with the case. A lot of the times, people end up sitting in lobbies longer than they need to because I can't find that information. I've got half of it in the state system. I've got half of it on paper. How do I now know what I need to do with this particular client? And what we have found is that 20% of this information is residing in the state system, while 80% resides somewhere else. You could put it in a county-based document management system, but unfortunately, a lot of counties have leaned on paper because they already think that they've got a state system. And when we communicate with the states directly, as we do partner with them as well, we'll go ahead and we'll say, do you want this evidence? Do you want this verification? And they'll say, absolutely. Can we just automatically share it? And then we'll show them what we've collected on a county level, and they'll go, oh, we don't want all that. We just want that information that's required to be collected. So now we've got kind of an idea and a concept of the state saying, well, I don't want to handle this 80%. I want to handle the 20%. Because why would the state care about a life book? Or why would the state care about, a school enrollment form or correspondence back and forth. If it's not directly required for the federal and state requirements, then don't collect or in my system. As a county, you're going above and beyond, you're collecting additional information, and you need a way to organize it. At the same time, the state system might just be for child support or food nutrition. Well, the other 80% could be in the other systems for those other programs. Where are you going to put it? Where are you going to aggregate it so that you can start building that case holistically from all the other program areas? So this is another county that we're looking at that we've worked with. We walked in and they said, we've got a state system. We don't need a document management system. And we walked in and we saw this and we went, well, what's all this? Well, that's all the stuff we can't get into the state system, but yet we're required to keep. We're required to collect. So now we've created half electronic, half paper, and 2, sometimes 3 times the work. So really, if you've already got a state system and you've got your toe in the water electronically, you should continue to go down the path of electronic work. That way you can work off of a computer and not have 2 systems, which actually would take more time than having just one on paper. So this would actually be our view that we would use in the system for case file organization. I'll just walk you through it very quickly of what this would mean. So I'm looking at all of the documents for a case. When I pull up a case, I see it based upon my job. So my job has a default view for child support establishment, for food nutrition intake, for child welfare ongoing case. I have a default view. But at the same time, like I've said several times, you have to look at that case file 3, 4 different ways because I'm getting ready for court. I'm getting ready to transfer this to a foster care or it's going to adoption. So I might need to click a button and reorganize this case file in real time. You'll also see that there are people across the top. So you've got Kate Johnson, you've got Amy Johnson, and what this means is that all of these documents are following the person. So yes, I have a case view, and the case view is made up of the people's documents that have followed them to this case. Remember, being people-centric is much more important than being case-centric. Be people-centric first, then apply the person to a case, and all the documents should follow them, not the opposite. I have a case, here's my evidence, and now I'm assigning people, but the evidence isn't following them. That's case-centric, and that's not really helping, and that's not working the way that the community would think that you would work, and it's not maximizing efficiencies. So what this means is that the documents are always available. If anybody has collected them, whether it's the front desk, the mailroom, or a partner agency, if I've collected it, it's a part of that person, and then there'll be confidentiality rules that say you've got access to it. If I go into a home for a child welfare case or adult protective services case and I say, who's that person? And they give me their information, I'll now be able to do an agency-wide search, add that person to the case, and all of their baggage and information is going to come with them. My case just got a new makeup. And rather than asking that person for all that redundant information, I've already got it. Now, if we have agency-wide access to the form, not just the documents, but also the forms. So some of the things that you might need are just local forms and information. It could just be school enrollment, local drug treatment, or a food bank. These are things that you'll want at your fingertips. You'll want them there and available so that you can start services more efficiently and more effectively on the front end. So while I'm out interacting with a client, I can say, oh, well, you need a Spanish form? I've got that. I didn't forget it back at the office. I can pull up a mobile device and have the forms and have it electronically signed and ready. And these local forms are the things that it's just near impossible for the state to handle. And again, imagine from their perspective, there are 6,000 school districts in my state. How am I going to manage a school enrollment form for the elementary school within one district that changes every year and the questions on it? That's a local issue. That's a local challenge that's much more easier to be met. You know, at the same time, there are local community hospitals that say, no, I don't want the state's release of information. I want mine. I want you to meet me on my terms and give me the form in the way that I see so that I can answer your request in a more timely, effective manner. We also automate the capture process. So there's always going to be things that come in electronically, whether it's email, it's fax. You can virtually print that, even Facebook, directly into a case file, which is helpful. I can just put it right in there in real time and have it build up. I can pull it in from the other state systems so that I have a place to work on it, click a button, pull it in, and now I can start working it within my county-based pilot Laserfiche system. We can take paper, and if we take paper and we scan it in, whether it's anybody in the agency, front desk, it could be scanned on a mobile device while I'm interacting with the family. Now I scan it in, and then I scan it against a person, and then it hits that person, and then it may update 6 cases simultaneously and alert the worker associated with each of those cases. That's the beauty of it. Collect maybe that arrest record or an income or a pay stub one time. It now hits that person, and then the system needs to see what all cases is this person in, and does this case need to have this information, and I'm going to alert the worker and tell them, yes, that information is now here. So now everybody's updating the cases. This isn't water cooler talk anymore to find out that mom has changed the situation or something has gone differently for that family. It's being automated. Think of some really complex ways that you deal with every day. Imagine that you take custody of a child in child welfare, and then now it alerts me on the other side that in child support, we have custody. We need to change those dollars. We also want to be audit ready. A lot of the times audit takes place after the fact, after a case is closed, once it's all organized. Well, what if the case was already ready to be looked at? What if you had a 4E view, or you had a child support enforcement view that you knew that the state wanted to look at, and you can have your internal program integrity look that up at any time and check and verify things as they're worked rather than when the case is closed. As I talked about a couple of times, supporting local providers. Here's that school district example all over again. You know, you've got all these different schools. I've got to get a child enrolled. I took custody of a child at 3 o'clock in the morning. I need to alert child support of that. I also need to support my local community providers and get that child enrolled into school, as they may have changed schools for kinship placement. Well, I've got that form on my iPad or my mobile device. Let me get you signed up. Let me get you enrolled into that. That's definitely a huge benefit that a lot of the times that local stuff isn't in the state system, the local foster care placements, the local community providers that you work with, and that can be a challenge. So what that means when you have those local forms at your fingertips is that you can immediately email forms from the office to the field to other offices. So I might be at a home with a client and I need to communicate with the local school district while I'm already there. I could be 3 counties over, 5 cities over, and that child is a part of that community. Don't go back to the office, take the release, then fax it and email it out to the other areas. Now I can do it right there on a mobile device, and I can now communicate with my local providers, fax or email a document to them on that device, go to that school while I'm in the community, and have that ready. A lot of the times it's a manual back and forth to the office. We can also enroll clients and services in real time. One of the things we do at Northwoods is we get in the cars with social workers, we follow the child support intake process throughout the way, we follow the food nutrition or Medicaid application or LEAP or whatever it may be, the energy assistance programs. We watch those processes go through, and then we say, we need to build this out in our system for you. And one of the things that I've seen when I'm in the cars with social workers, I'm thinking about a mom, she's a single mom, she didn't have transportation, she didn't have water, and she had a newborn infant child. Well, she ran out of food nutrition benefits, her apartment was hot, she didn't have a car, and she had no food. So the social worker's taken down, and she wanted to sign her up for 12 services. You know, the box fan, the getting a clinician to come out and check on the child from time to time, getting transportation services to the grocery store, getting that person enrolled into a local food pantry. The list goes on and on. And as she's walking out the door, the mom is begging her, please do not forget to enroll me in these services. Please, I need them. And that social worker becomes that lifeline. So what we see when you have a mobile device with all those local community provider forms, which would be a huge binder, stacks and stacks of papers if you were to take it in paper form, they're right there at your fingertips. Oh, let's sit down together. Let me fill out a food nutrition application with you. Let me start out the local community provider coming out and checking on you and your baby from time to time. Let me get you a bus pass. Let me get you enrolled in a local food pantry to come get some of those foods. I'll get you signed up for these services while I'm here. Imagine what that would do for rapport. Imagine what that would do so that they could build that trust with that worker while they're in the home. You're doing this for me right now? That's awesome. I don't have to wait for you to get back to the office and you're doing all this stuff after hours because you've been on the road all day. How beneficial would that be to you and your community? At the same time, meeting providers on their terms is great. Happy providers are better partners. So if you can very easily give that local hospital, you can auto-populate information on it, you can get it signed, and I can give you the form you want every time very easily. Now, I love working with this community provider. I love working with this human services agency because they always give me what I want in a timely, effective manner. There's no delay. There's no misses in communication. You know, these are things that most human services agencies do a good job of today, but they're killing themselves to do it. What if we made that easier? So now community providers want to step up and say, hey, I want to help you out. I want to get this done because you're doing a great job of getting me things quickly and effectively. And really, when you can front load services, when I can get a mom enrolled into drug and alcohol treatment when she says she wants to, or I can get a parent into a teen parenting class, and now I've got community providers to help me with that, and I'm front loading some of these services, I'm now lowering the taxpayer cost to handle that person. It's so much easier to get them those early community services than to wait for that to turn into a CPS case, than to wait for that to take place. We want to get you there right now. And I know I'm using a lot of child welfare benefits, but the same thing's true for adult protective services. You know, some of you may not be integrated in with the court system for child support, so the same thing applies there. I need to have a good communication back and forth with the court, the county clerk, or whoever it may be. There's a whole list of people that you are always communicating with to take care of your clients. We also see these electronic signatures and forms, and we say, yeah, the state gives me a lot of that stuff, but as we've said, they can't handle all of that. The voter registration, the local forms to get a release of property records, or to get that child enrolled, or to get that person set up with a service, that's a challenge. Also, some of the state systems don't auto-populate information. You know, that can be a challenge. I'm now handwriting that same information over and over again, or if I am, the state system generates it, and then I'm doing an electronic attestation. Well, now my court system doesn't take an electronic attestation. They want a real signature. So you generated it. Now I have to print it and sign it, and now I have to have a place to keep it. So we've kind of created paper from an electronic system. It's creating more work yet again. And now I have to go, and maybe I don't like the language that comes out on a form. I need to change an order. I need to change the language there. How do I do that? Where do I do that? Well, you're doing it outside the state system. So what we do is we take all your local forms, and they look like your local forms. That's the nice thing, is taking that PDF, that Word document that any community provider, and state forms as well, and we scan them into the system. And then now we apply automatically the mom, the 3 kids, all of that information on here, so that your forms, you don't have to write the redundant information over and over again, the state case ID, the county case ID. If mom's got 5 kids, writing the 5 kids' social security numbers 38 times while I try to do a particular form. That is just redundant information that your staff are killing themselves to do. So we want to make that automatic. We want to use the real signature pads, just like you see at the grocery stores or while you're at the bank. Don't print it off and hand write that and then keep that paper. What we would do with that is, okay, the state system generates it. We can then pull it over to our system electronically, have the client sign it with an electronic signature pad, and then store it. And then now everybody in the agency has it. Everybody's there, it's available, it's accessible, with confidentiality, of course. But that's getting the signatures applied, real signatures applied, without having to print that is a huge benefit. So that's the nice thing about it, is the electronic forms look and feel like the paper forms. When I print them off and it looks like a wet signature and everything, looks, the emblems, the signs, everything on it. That's why pulling a PDF in to create the electronic forms in our solution is huge, to get that set up in that way so that now you can go ahead and say, oh, well, this looks like that. And that makes the community providers happy. It makes state, it makes auditors happy. You know, if the forms look like what they're supposed to look like, that's a happy auditor. That's a happy anybody looking at those documents. We also want to allow for electronic signatures, so real signatures, not an attestation, but applying a signature to it so that they could hold up in court. It could be printed off and still be in compliance. Doing that without ever generating it in paper, pulling it over from a state system, applying the signatures, getting it into the case is huge. Electronically faxing it or emailing it without ever having to put it in paper is a big benefit as well. One of the other things that you would want in an accounting system is you'd want it to group together the forms. So to say that there's one form to initiate a service isn't correct. There's 3 or 4 forms that I might need to get somebody enrolled in the food and nutrition, or to get them set up with child support, or to get ready for court, or to and get a child in the foster care. There's so many forms involved with each one of those. And you would want those forms, and that's what our solution would offer. You would take those forms, and it would group them together. It would auto-apply mom, dad, the 3 kids on that set of forms, not just one, but maybe 10 forms, and then you go through and put your signatures on it, and it stores it in the system. And that's the nice thing about it is the known information is filled automatically. If we have it in the system, why wouldn't we have it auto-populated on the forms? So that you don't have to recreate that redundant information over and over again. If you've already filled out a form previously, and let's say you're doing a recertification or you're doing another safety assessment, just pull over the information from the last time and make the adjustments. It could be just as simple as a date or an income amount, or it could be a different response on a safety assessment. We also want to apply those barcodes to those documents so that when you scan them in, the system automatically knows who it is. Right down to that barcode could be for a person, it could be for a document type, so that we know, scan it in, it takes care of it, it knows where it needs to go. And that's making the clerical lift of this work a lot easier for you. So one of the things that we see is that as state systems come out, the client interaction has now morphed from what it used to be. What it used to be was FaceTime, us sitting down, us talking about it. And now it's kind of become me sitting at a computer and saying, what's this, what's the answer to number 3 or 4, what's your income, what's this, what's that? And what that's doing is it's cutting down on that meaningful interaction that I really just want to talk to somebody, I really want help. And not to mention that that's why most people got into human services in the first place. You are mission-driven people. That is why you're doing this job. I want to help somebody get fed. I want to help them get their health care benefits. I want to make sure that children or adults in need are safe. That is why you have taken up this duty and this responsibility, not to push paperwork and not to kill yourself looking at a computer today rather than having that meaningful rapport and interaction with the client. When you've got it and you've got to do this work out of the paper system, you've got processes out of the state system, you've got processes in. As I've said, now you've got mounds of paper on your desk that you're looking through, you've got a client in front of you in need, and you're saying, oh, is that in the state system or is it here? Where is it? Where's the source of truth that I can look through and then I can make sure that I can get you a timely answer? One of the other things that we typically see is that as Gabe's doing what he's doing here, so Gabe is from Winona County, Minnesota, with a state system, and what Gabe is doing is he's filling out the information for a client. But when I'm doing that, I'm looking on the paper, I'm not looking at the client. So that's whether I'm doing an application at my desk or in that person's home, a lot of the times people just want you to look at them. They just want you to interact, collect the information that you need, and keep your eyes focused on that person. And when you do that, when you can keep your eyes on that person, you're now, you now have the opportunity to not miss critical things like body language. When I'm not looking at the person, I don't know their body language. I thought they were great. I thought they were comfortable. Well, that's because you spent half the time looking away from them and you weren't able to kind of hold that. You know, I've also seen the opportunity where somebody is going through this and they're saying, I need to fill all this information. I want to make sure that you're informed to what needs to be done. I'm not holding eye contact. I'm asking you for the same information over and over again, and I'm taking them through that checkbox, through that process. And most workers, no matter where you are in the agency, you typically work in a gray area. I want to get this done as quickly and fast and efficiently as I can. It's not always a scripted process. So I want to now say, this is how I want to do my work that makes sense to me, and you need a system that's going to accommodate for that. And that's really the moral of this. And you know, if I'm looking on the bottom left-hand corner here, this is an interaction between a social worker and an adult for an adult protective services case. If you don't have a system that's user-friendly to share the client and say, here's what I'm doing for you, then you'll never get past the barrier of working electronically. You know, that's what she's doing right here in this picture. She's saying, here's my system. Would you like to see what I'm doing for you? Would you like to see that I'm getting you set up with these local community providers? And kind of building that trust and not making that big complex system kind of a hidden secret that you're working on behind the desk. So what this would mean is building trusting relationships sooner, more effective. I can look at you. So, you know, we have opportunities and ways to take pictures on an iPad or to record interactions so that I don't have to take notes while we're talking. We just chat. You know, we spend a lot of time transporting clients in need, and that's when great interactions take place. Well, how are you collecting that? Are you taking notes as you drive, or are you going back 3 weeks later and trying to remember what that conversation was? When a solution works the way that you do as a worker, that's huge. It's not, I need these data elements to get funding or to meet a compliance requirement. No, no, no. I need the information presented to me in this way. I need these forms. I need this signed. I need it done right away so that I can work the way you work, the way that I need to, so that I can do it as quickly and as fast and as effective as I need to. We also want to look at better outcomes. If I now have a holistic view of all the information in the agency that I need at my fingertips, now I have the opportunity to make faster and better, more informed decisions. And I'll tell you, I've spent times with all kinds of people across human services. There's no doubt in my mind that most people are doing a really good job and they're putting a lot of passion and thought into this, but they're killing themselves to do it. So we want to make it faster and easier. We want to meet you the way you do. So if you're a county that has somebody that wears 3 or 4 hats, shouldn't your system accommodate that so that that one person can change those hats easily? Have a view to do that, to do child support enforcement and establishment and interstate. Have 3 different views for that one person. Have somebody in adult protective services doing investigation, adult home monitoring, getting daycare monitoring taken care of, and child welfare. Everybody has a role, and the system needs to accommodate that role so that that person who's a trooper that's doing 15 different jobs, which happens almost everywhere, is easily accommodated for. So at this point, I'm going to kick it back over to Taylor.
Thanks, Dustin. So today, Dustin gave us a pretty great overview of why a county-based system makes sense. So I wanted to take this time to invite everybody to take a deeper dive and see the system in action. And you can see here that the workshop we're going to be having is going to be on August 13th in York, Pennsylvania at the Homewood Suites by Hilton. And of course, we'll provide lunch to all the attendees. To register, just go ahead and go to this link here and register. So I'd like to thank everybody again for attending our webinar. We hope it's been very informative. So at this time, we're going to go ahead and open up the floor for questions at this time. And then if you have any follow-up questions or concerns, please feel free to reach out to Dustin or myself at the contact information provided here. And just as a quick reminder, to ask a question, just type your question into the Q&A box at the lower right-hand portion of your screen. Another question we have received here is, how do I schedule an on-site demonstration? So a couple different ways we can schedule an on-site demonstration. Of course, you can reach out to either of us at the contact information provided, and we'd be happy to set up that on-site demonstration with you. Or you can go to the website, and there is a portion on there to schedule that on-site demonstration. Another question we are getting here is, what if I can't make it to York?
Yeah, and Taylor, I'm happy to take this one. You know, really, York is just an example of one of the many events that we do, and it doesn't have to be Pennsylvania. We understand we've got attendees from other states on here as well. Like I said, we work everywhere. So if you can't make it to York, let us know. As Taylor said, we could do an online presentation as somebody else asked for, or you know, we'd be happy to start some discussions and maybe come out and meet with your team and see your processes, discuss how you do business today, and see if we can fit in. I'm not going to say that we are the perfect fit for every state, every county, every situation, but for the admiration and respect that we have for human service employees and the work that they do, we want to make sure we can fit in. That's the first step. So we start with conversations. How do you do business? Where can we gap fill against it? And then see if there's an opportunity for a good partnership there with your county. So you don't have to be in York. We can handle this on any kind of one-off conversation that anybody would be interested in having.
Thanks, Dustin. Another question we're seeing here is, if I already have Laserfiche, how do I add the Northwoods component? You want to go ahead and grab that one?
Yeah, that's a great question. So we're happy to do that. You have to have Laserfiche to make us work. We're a partnership. Laserfiche is an awesome document management system. And what we do is we provide kind of that workflow, that interface that sits on top of it specifically for human services. We're already sitting on top of Laserfiche in about maybe 50 other counties across the U.S. So, you know, if you've got Laserfiche, awesome, you're halfway there. You've got a great investment, you've got a great system, and we would just come in and we would sit on top of that, and then we could pull your documents and start out with already all the information electronically. You're just surfacing our information with that people knowledge, the local forms knowledge, kind of intertwined in between. So yeah, it's a very common thing that we work through. We just started a project in Harnett County, North Carolina, where they've had Laserfiche for 5-6 years, and they got a hold of us and said, we want to take it to the next level, and that's what we're doing for them. That project is right underway right now for their children's services.
Excellent, thanks. It doesn't seem like we have any more questions at this time, but I definitely wanted to let the audience know, if you do come up with any questions, please don't hesitate to reach out to those contacts on the screen. And one more time, we will be sending out a recording of this webinar today, so feel free to forward that to anybody else in your organization that wasn't able to make it that you think could benefit from this. So at this time, I'd like to thank everyone once again for making it out, and we will be following up shortly.